This is the Predator podcast, brought to you by Predatar, the recovery assurance platform built for complete confidence.
Welcome back to another episode of the Predator podcast, and with me today is our managing director, Rick.
Hi.
And today we're going to be talking about something very, very important, and that is the recovery gap. Rick is going to be giving us a deeper dive into this. And to kick things off, Rick, from my understanding, the recovery gap is where a business is and where they really need to be in the event of a data loss. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, so I think you're absolutely right there. So what we're talking about there, Xavi, is if a customer has a mass data loss event, maybe because of a cyber attack, there's a good chance they're going to have to rely on their backups to recover from. Now, a portion of those backups will make up what we call their minimum viable business. These are the machines that they need to absolutely bring back first to get their business up and running as a minimum viable concept.
I see.
So let's say you have 1,000 machines in your business and, 250 of those form your minimum viable business. That is what you need to bring back first. Then you've got your levels of confidence around bringing those back. Where your confidence is, where these machines are, the gap in between is the recovery gap.
I see. So does that mean every business has a recovery gap? Would you also agree with that? Yeah.
The majority of businesses will have a gap between what they assume will recover or what they're confident will recover and what they actually need to recover. Some will know there's a gap, some don't know there's a gap. So, for example, through our studies, we found about 8% of recoveries fail for a variety of reasons. That's 1 in 14 backups will fail to recover for a variety of reasons. What happens, though, is during a cyber attack, we've seen that kind of increase tenfold, that failure rate. So it goes from 8% from 1 in 14 up to about 84%. So it's like a tenfold increase in failed backups. So that's something that obviously customers need to address.
That is crazy. There's some crazy numbers there, and it's quite scary, And it kind of leads me to the next question, which is, what are the implications of having this gap for a business?
I mean, the implications are fairly well known. First, obviously, the key implication is if 84% of your backups are failing to recover, that data's not coming back. And that obviously has a huge impact on financials, reputation. It's probably game over. If you can't bring back 84% of your minimum viable business, you've got no business anymore. And we've seen that. There's been examples almost on a monthly basis of where people have been hit by ransomware or cybercrime activity and they aren't able to bring back. There was one not too long ago, a huge European cloud provider basically shut down overnight because they were attacked, all their data was destroyed, and the backups were destroyed with it. They had no business.
Oh, that is crazy. That's actually very, very scary, and that kind of makes what we do very, very important here at Predator, to at least give them that confidence that stuff like that wouldn't happen to them, Yeah, very, very interesting. So how can businesses then find out their recovery gap? How can they know that, we have this gap and this is something we need to address?
So, yes, a good question. So how can they find out they've got a recovery gap? The first thing is they need to be looking at their backup environment today. So I would recommend that before anybody worries about their recovery gap, they get the fundamentals right first. So what we're talking about, things like that, make sure your backups have got encryption enabled end to end. So if you have encryption enabled, that will stop. Even if data gets stolen in backup, it's going to be really difficult for the cyber criminals to open up that data and use that. So that's point number one.
Okay.
Second point is air gaps. So you need an air-gapped copy of backup. One of the typical attack vectors these days for cyber criminals, if they get into your environment, they generally going after your backup environment first and trying to take that offline because they know that's your insurance policy. So by having an air-gapped copy of backups, if cyber criminals do get in and take your backups offline, having that air-gapped copy can protect against that. Third point is immutability. So you need to be keeping at least one copy of your backups stored immutably. That helps you defend against if ransomware gets in and starts to encrypt backups, having an immutable copy stops that ransomware encrypting and corrupting those immutable copies first. Fourth thing you need to then be looking at, once you've got the basics right, is how do I ensure those backups actually recover? And the only way to do that is through regular, continual testing of those backups.
I see. And that is where a solution like Predatar can come in and help them with that testing with point number 4 there.
Yeah. So, Predatar's designed to basically do that testing on a company's behalf.
Okay.
So the platform will automate the testing of those recoveries to prove that your backups will recover. Clearly, you can do that manually, but most businesses don't because it takes time, it takes effort, it takes money. So, most of the customers we talk to, if we go back to that stat before, 1 in 14 backups fail, which goes up tenfold during an attack. Challenge is most businesses that we talk to today are testing less than 1% of their backups.
Oh.
So it's a very, very small portion of their backups are getting tested on an annual basis. Whereas, we're seeing the dwell time. So dwell time means where attackers are getting into your environment and then they're either leaving malware to start to encrypt things. Dwell time is from the time they get in to the time an attack happens. That used to be quite a long period of time. So they put things in there, let that crawl around your environment before it activates. They know that the detection tools are getting much faster and it's starting to keep pace with the criminals. So they're reducing that attack vector now. Rather than leaving things to spread for weeks and weeks, they're getting in there and attacking quickly before the tools out there detect it. So dwell time on average was about 52 days over the last couple of years. That's come down to 5 days. So attackers are getting in and they're doing these attacks much more quickly before the malware, the malware detection tools and all the technologies people have can catch it. So they're getting in, attacking really, really quickly. Point I'm trying to make there though is with the dwell time reducing, you can't rely on doing an annual recovery test once a year. You need to be testing your backups every day, continually, because if they're getting in there and attacking you within 5 days, and your last DR test was 6 months ago for 1% of your environment, you've no idea how you're going to recover from that attack, and that just makes this recovery gap bigger than it's ever been.
Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. I like how you've broken that down because you made it very clear for somebody a layman to understand that. And it was gonna lead me to the next question is we could talk about some specific challenges or businesses in terms of they know they have this recovery gap and they would like to do something about it, but what would you say is preventing them from actually doing that? What kind of hurdles or challenges do they face?
Same old thing, time and money. So to do this manually, which is absolutely possible, and to do it every day, you would need a dedicated team doing that every day. That's time, that's money. Most businesses don't have that today. They can't afford to have 10, 20 people sat round testing every day. That's where platforms like Predatar help. It's much more scalable. You put the platform in, and it's doing that automatically every single day. Sure, it costs money, but it reduces the need for time on your side, and you don't need a small army of people. You've got a platform doing it. So it's a much more cost-efficient way to do that. The only time people need to get involved is if you find a problem. So if a backup fails to recover, someone needs to have a look at and understand why. If we find malware within your backups, and then we tell you how far that malware is spread in your backups, which is what Predatar does, again, that's where a human needs to make a decision on, am I going to go and try and clean my production systems with what Predator's told me? Am I going to try and recover from my backups? So that's where a human would then have to get involved. But if the tests are successful and there's no malware found, Predatar will just sit there in the background
doing the test,
working through the test every day until it finds an issue.
So cool. Really, really cool what our software does. And like you said, it saves them a lot of money in terms of them hiring their own team. And, much more efficient. And AI and all this stuff involved. So Rick, you've given us a very, very good and expert insight into this recovery gap thing. I thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we've come to the end of today's episode of the podcast, and once again, thanks guys for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next episode. And thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. Cheers, Abby.
Thanks for tuning in to the Predator podcast. Brought to you by Predatar, the recovery assurance platform built for complete confidence. Learn more at predatar.com.